Hello, all, and welcome back to another episode of Homestuck for Dummies. Today we will be doing the intermission. So, as you may remember, the story of Homestuck is certainly starting to ramp up, but today you can forget all of that. Just lay back and relax because we're going into a nice little intermission away from the rest of the story. So as we enter the intermission and the red curtains pull back as they do at the beginning of the other acts, we see a green mansion underneath a purple sky. Inside of this mansion, having just used some sort of explosive to blast his way inside, is a interesting looking man by the name of Spades Slick. He is the leader of a notoriously vicious gang of mobsters called the Midnight Crew, and recently the rival gang called the Felt knocked over one of his favorite casinos. So now he's on a quest of revenge to kill all of the Felt, including their boss, Lord English. He has shown up with his subordinates Club's Deuce, Diamond's Droog, and Heart's Boxcars, and they're currently dispatched to various locations throughout the mansion, trying to get to English's secret vault. And with that introduction out of the way, Spade Slick begins examining his surroundings and journeying into the manor. The first thing he does is destroy a few of the clocks in the foyer. Apparently one of his main goals is to destroy as many clocks in this mansion as possible. I'm not really sure why, he just doesn't seem to like clocks very much. Anyway, he before he moves on, he checks underneath the rug in the foyer for traps, but all he finds is some guy just a picture of some guy, some furry-lipped member of a species that Spade Slick does not recognize. He covers it back up, and then he opens up his war chest and looks inside. He pulls out his backup hat, which conceals 2 licorice Scotty dogs. I guess he likes licorice. He then pulls out his Crosby top, but he doesn't really know who Crosby is. She just knows that it's the guy on the laptop. Anyway, he goes to mspaintadventures.com, where he sees the most recent page from Homestuck, and then he stabs the laptop in the bottom right of the screen where the clock is, destroying yet another clock on his reign of terror. He then examines his vendetta itinerary, and we see that he has already knocked off 3 of the members of the Felt, and we get a look at all the members. Each one of them is numbered, which is very nice. And in case you don't pick up on it right away, they're all their hats are solids and stripes like billiard balls. So yeah, the felt is really just one big reference to pool and billiards. So we learned that the 3 that he's killed off already are crowbar, number 7, matchsticks, number 11, and quarters, number 14. And we learned a little bit about some of the other members that he has yet to kill. Itchy, number 1, apparently is very good about giving Spade Slick the slip. Doze, number 2, apparently has been captured many times and interrogated just as repeatedly, but to no avail. Trace, number 3, has broken into their hideout more times than he can count. While Finn, number 5, always seems to be one step ahead and scoops out their heists. Clover, number 4, has all the intel and is highly cooperative. They might need him to crack the vault, but he'll be guarded. Number 6, Die, is best to be avoided in any direct confrontations unless they want a temporal mess on their hands, whatever that means. But number 9 is apparently good at fixing those temporal messes. And his name is Stitch. Sawbuck, number 10, is apparently going to be tough to take down. Eggs and Biscuits, numbers 12 and 13, are morons, but dangerous morons. And Cans, number 15, is a tank and will probably be the hardest to take down. There are 2 people missing from this little thing. Lord English, who has never been seen before, nobody knows what he looks like. And Snowman, number 8. He does have a picture for Snowman, but he claims that he isn't going to kill her. Oops. I guess that's sort of a spoiler. Anyway, we don't really learn that Snowman's a girl till later, but fuck it. Alright, so Spade Slick radios one of his guys. Or actually, he just radios all of them and asks for a status report, but no one responds. And he heads on into the next room, where a bunch of clocks have already been destroyed by gunfire. And Club's Deuce calls for Spade Slick over the radio. Says he's got Doze tied up for interrogation. But Spade Slick isn't very impressed, because apparently capturing that guy is like shooting a paralyzed monkey in the face. We then switch over to Club's Deuce's point of view, where he has Doze tied up. He starts giving him some senseless shin drubbings with his weapon. And then Doze activates his special ability, which allows him to slow time down for himself, which is basically useless. We also learned that Club's Deuce has no intention of destroying any clocks. He finds them quite lovely. He then goes to open up his battle drobe, which is his inventory, and we see number 1, Itchy, speed by in the background. Suddenly, he turns around and notices Itchy, who has untied Doze, and then quickly swaps everyone's hats. Doze begins very, 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 very slowly attempting to escape. And the chase is on. We go back to Spade Slick, who is beating up some clocks, and we see Itchy is running about. And he starts running in circles around Spade Slick, taunting him, so Spade Slick just holds out his leg, which causes Itchy to trip. He then clobbers him to death. And puts on his backup hat. Because Itchy really enjoyed swapping everyone's hats around. Suddenly, Dai appears out of nowhere with a very nonplussed, bewildered look on his face. We go back to Club's Deuce, who is digging through the contents of his battle drobe as Doze continues to very slowly run away, though he's only moved a few inches at this point. We learn that Club's Deuce also enjoys licorice and has a pair of licorice gummy bears in his backup hat. He also carries around a magazine called Black Inches, which is his private reading material. So I guess it's kind of like porn for him. He then picks up some C4, puts it on his head, and then puts his hat on top of that. Not on purpose. He's just stupid. Anyway, we go over to Diamond's Droog, who has had his hat swapped with Itchy and is very upset about it. He opens up his Brawlzolium, where he pulls out his backup hat, and it contains 2 Swedish fish. Suddenly, he gets cold cocked in the face from the future, and we learn that it is in fact Trace who is able to follow your past trail around and mess with you, whatever that means. Diamond's Droog radios Deuce for backup and gives him the time and place and exactly what path through the mansion to take to catch up with Trace later on. Diamond's Droog then starts following a trail of blood up some stairs. We go back to Club's Deuce, who has tied up Doze again with a Stretch Armstrong doll and has also put a time bomb on top of his head. He then hears the order from Diamond's Droog and decides to get on at 10-4, but not before stuffing Doze inside of his battle drobe with his bull penis cane. He then freaks out because he remembers that his cane is in fact made of bull penis. Fun fact, the reason that he freaks out about this is because when the creator Hussey got this image of a cane offline and decided to use it, he didn't realize until at this point in the comic that it was in fact a bull penis cane, and he thought it was very silly, so he decided to have Club's Deuce freak out about it in comic. Anyway, we go to an alternate universe where Itchy is still alive and playing cards with Dai. Itchy cheats using his super fast speed. Dai is very upset because Ichi always cheats and decides to jump to a timeline where Ichi is dead, which we then learn is why Dai showed up right after Spade Slick killed Ichi earlier. Spade Slick then beats Dai to death. Wait, no. Almost to death. But he's not quick enough. He then puts his Spade's pin in his little voodoo doll, which takes him to a alternate universe where Spade Slick is dead and the town does not exist because Spade Slick was the main reason that this town ever came into existence. And we see a big purple moon and an even larger green moon in the background. Weird. Anyway, we go over to Hart's boxcars, who's found his way to the secret vault, but he's unable to pry it open with his hands. So he's gonna have to find some way in. There appears to be a very large clock on the front of the vault, which is most likely the thing you have to mess with to get inside, but he doesn't know how to deal with this bullshit, so he's just gonna get Deuce to bring him some explosives so they can blow open the vault. He opens up his wrath tub, where he starts digging through his things. He picks up his pair of wax lips, and we get a look at his magazine, Red Cheeks, which is his private material. He then radios Deuce to let him know that he needs a powder monkey on the double. He then hears a ticking from the corner of the room and goes over and sees an oven, which he realizes contains biscuits because this is Biscuit's oven. The ticking oven timer goes off and Biscuit pops out from the oven. And we learn that Biscuit's ability is that he has this oven and he can stuff himself in the oven and then set the timer. And when the timer goes off, he pops out. But it's not really time travel, because like that's kind of the thing with all the felt. They all have time powers. His ability is to go inside the oven and move forward at a rate of 1 second per second. So he just goes inside the oven. The only thing about the oven is that it's basically unbreakable. And then Eggs appears. Eggs' ability is similar to Biscuit's, except a bit more annoying because it causes him to appear in other parallel universes. So suddenly, like, 3 different eggs just appear out of nowhere, and Hearts Boxcars is already done with this bullshit. Alright. We go to Club's Deuce, who has followed the path through the mansion that Drew told him to. And we see that Trace is following this path, trying to figure out what Deuce is up to. In the present, he starts talking to Diamond's Drews, who enters a room while following the trail of blood and sees that there is apparently a gunfight in here. But he doesn't know if it happened in the future or the past or whatever the fuck. He then sees a tooth on the ground that he realizes belongs to Finn, So then he realizes that Finn in the past is probably following his future trail. So he pulls out his pool club and starts drubbing the air, which hits past Finn, and then he shoots the room, which shoots Finn and all these clocks in the past, because time shit, I guess. Their time powers are stupid and useless, and it's kind of great, but kind of stupid. I don't know. And then we learn that that's why there's that blood trail, because Finn got shot in the past by present Diamond's Droog, and then he went down the stairs, trailing blood everywhere. Dai realizes that transporting to another parallel timeline where Spade Slick is dead doesn't actually solve anything, so he pulls the Spade Slick pin back out and reappears in the room with Spade Slick, and then Spade Slick slits his throat with his pocket knife. So that's that, I guess. Alright, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dead. Spade Slick takes the voodoo doll. He then burns all the clocks in the room, as well as Itchy and Dai's body. We see Club's Deuce is trailing behind Trace, who is following Club's Deuce's future trail. And it's sort of just like one big loop around. He then places Doze somewhere that will cause him to be next to Club's Deuce's future trail. So Trace shows up and goes to untie Doze, and then Doze unslows himself and just mumbles something about his hat. Trace takes off Doze's hat, and we see the time bomb from earlier, which explodes and kills both of them. So that's 7 out of 15 dead. Finn, in the past, following Club's Deuce's future trail, decides he's gonna take him out, but he's very dizzy and he can't aim properly, and he's scared to pull the trigger because of the C4 in Club's Deuce's on his head. Because if that went off, it would kill both of them. He mistakes Club's Deuce for being a criminal mastermind, but it's really just dumb luck. Anyway, back to Hart's boxcars. There's now like 4 or 5 biscuits and like twice as many eggs, and they're all just standing around being stupid, and Hart's boxcars is fed up with time travel bullshit. We then see Clover, who is standing in a different part of the room, just watching this all go down. We switch over to Stitch, who is stitching up Lord English's Cairo overcoat. He is apparently the in-house doctor, as well as a tailor capable of stitching up time. He's apparently the guy that fixes all the time travel bullshit that all these other idiots fuck up. Anyway. We see Finn show up at Stitch's part of the mansion, asking to get fixed up. But then suddenly Spade Slick puts Finn's pin in the voodoo doll, which automatically kills him. So he's dead. Club's Deuce shows up, just waving around his bull penis cane, C4 on his head. Stitch pulls out his Tommy gun and tells Club's Deuce that C4 is a stable explosive, which means it won't detonate in gunfire. So Club's Deuce's whole thing is kind of botched. But luckily Diamond's Droog appears behind Stitch. So now Stitch is being held up, and then he hits Stitch in the face a few times with the butt of his gun and decides to keep him alive for now just in case, and he stuffs him into his inventory. Hart's boxcar is still dealing with eggs and biscuits. Nothing important is happening. Spade Slick then pulls out Crowbar's pen, which takes him to a parallel universe, where Crowbar is still alive, and he shows up in the middle of a gunfire, or a gun thingy. Whatever. Words. He thinks about inserting Snowman's pin, but then decides that would probably be a terrible idea. We then see, suddenly, as he's pondering over this, Snowman herself arrives. She comes down the stairs with some sort of fancy cigarette holder. The gunfire stops. She goes up to Slick. Drops a cool line and then stabs him in the eye with the cigarette holder. And then walks away like a total badass. God, that was hot. Alright, moving on. Apparently, if you kill Snowman, you destroy the universe. Whatever that means. He then takes the cigarette holder, which transforms into a big lance, and hits Sawbuck with it, which causes both Spade Slick and Sawbuck to jump to a random point on the timeline. Where Crowbar and Stitch are moving some boxes around, apparently setting up for the gunfight. Spade Slick kills Stitch, and then he throws a weapon at him, or he throws a weapon at Sawbuck, which causes them to jump to another point on the timeline, way back in the past. And we see in the background a scurrilous straggler watching this all go down. Spade Slick then beats Crowbar to death. Not to death. but he beats the shit out of him and takes his crowbar and stuffs him in his war chest. And then he goes up and slashes Sawbuck again, which takes him to another point on the timeline where Hart's boxcar is at. They then stuff Stitch's body and Sawbuck into the Wrath tub. He sticks Crowbar's pin back in, which takes him back to the original timeline. He opens up the chest, and the crowbar from the other timeline pops out with a gun. Crowbar shoots, but Spade Slick manages to deflect the bullet into Sawbuck, which takes them all back into the past. And now there's two Sawbucks. So Crowbar and Sawbuck, who are on either side of Spade Slick, go to shoot Spades, but he jumps out of the way just in time, causing them to shoot each other and go to a different point on the timeline. Spade Slick then stabs Sawbuck one more time, which takes him to another point on the timeline where two different Spade Slicks run into each other. And then with one final stab, that future Spade Slick vamooses out, and we stick with the present Spade Slick. Or past Spade Slick, I don't know. Whatever. And then he pulls Crowbar's pen, and then all the shit we just saw happen. Anyway, future Spade Slick, who is maybe present Spade Slick, we see after he stabs Sawbuck again with his fucking butterfly knife, he goes to a part in the future where Sawbuck and Crowbar are dead and have been decapitated. Apparently there was more fighting in here. He then pulls the cigarette torso from Sawbuck's chest, which causes it to turn back into the lance, and they go to a different point on the timeline. And then he strangles Sawbuck until he's unconscious, which doesn't result in them. Or no, he just strangles him dead, I guess. Whatever. Anyway. This time shit's getting frustrating. Anyway. Diamonds Drew calls Spade Slick to check up on him. Slick says he's gonna head down to the vault. Diamonds Drew has a gun to Stitch and is having him stitch up some voodoo doll thingies of the 4 Midnight Crew members to make sure they're all in tip-top shape. And he sews up Spade Slick's bad eye so it's not bleeding anymore. We go down to Diamonds Droog and Club's Deuce, where there's a shit ton of eggs and biscuits, and Clover is dancing around, the little slut. Spade Slick charges in right as Stitch is about to destroy the voodoo doll thingies of the Midnight Crew members, which would kill them, and stabs him through the chest with the lance, killing him. And also, kaboom, there's a big explosion. and everyone except Eggs, Biscuits, and the other guy whose name I can't remember right now are all dead. Spade Slick then takes the crowbar and destroys Egg's egg timer, and apparently the crowbar is capable of destroying the temporal items and canceling out time shenanigans. So by destroying the egg timer, it fixes all the time bullshit. Now there's only 1 eggs and 1 biscuit. Heart's boxcar then eats Egg's head, just like bites it off. That's not a joke. He literally just bites Egg's head off. Biscuits looks very worried and he hides inside of his oven. So Spade Slick just starts breaking the oven with the crowbar. And then they open it up and throw a bomb inside. And then wheel that off to a different part of the mansion, where a few hours later it ends up exploding. So nice. Now the only person left is Clover. He's dancing about, all silly like. He insists that they don't use the crowbar to open up the vault because that would have major consequences, apparently. Clover then starts doing a frisky jig, and spins a fanciful series of riddles illuminating the true path to opening the vault. Diamond Droog points a gun at Clover's head and asks him to open the safe. But turns out Clover is so lucky there's no way that he'd be shot by the gun because his whole thing, I guess, is being insanely lucky. So Diamond Droog starts beating him over the head with a newspaper because you don't really have to be all that unlucky to get whacked around with a newspaper. It's sort of a gray area. But then he drops his newspaper and it turns out not to be a newspaper, but his private reading, The Grey Ladies. Clover ogles it as it falls to the ground, and suddenly cans bursts through the wall, Kool-Aid Man style, knocking Diamond Droog into next week, literally, because that's his power. He gets knocked into the middle of doing some grocery shopping, but because this is past Diamond Droog, he has no idea what he's coming to grocery shop for or what is he low on. Whatever. We go back. Heart's boxcar throws Egg's body at Cans. It doesn't work. So Cans just knocks Heart's boxcar into an outdated calendar year, to a calendar filled with spirited horses. Spade Slick is sick of this shit and starts prying open the vault with the crowbar, and suddenly everything is destroyed except for Spade Slick and the vault. Everyone's dead, all except for Snowman, Lord English, and Spade Slick. Spade Slick then enters the vault, and we see a spade symbol on the ground with a little keyhole, which is very odd because why would English's treasure be locked behind a door with a spade on it? He then pulls out his spade key, but it turns out he doesn't need it because the keyhole was never a keyhole all along. It was actually a barcode scanner, and because Spade Slick has a little barcode thingy on his wrist, he goes to scan that. But Snowman shoots up and tears his arm off with her whip. So he can't scan his arm anymore. And then she disappears and locks him in the vault. He is very angry. So to fix this, he flips his sprite, which is a thing he can do, I guess. And now he has his barcode back. So he scans the barcode, and we see a familiar spirograph symbol on a sort of lid to something. He takes the lid off and goes down a set of stairs, or a ladder. I don't know why I said stairs, into a very interesting looking underground bunker with a large computer shaped like a house. There are 12 screens on the computer. One of the screens is illuminated. And we see some weird looking kid with gray skin and horns. And apparently Spade Slick recognizes the kid. And that's where we end the intermission. So, yeah, if that didn't make any sense to you, don't worry. The only important thing is the very end where Spade Slick went down into the bunker, similar to what we saw Wayward Vagabond go into. Except this bunker had a computer with 12 screens and some kid with gray skin and horns instead of a normal looking kid. Also, Lord English is important in Snowman. But we'll get to that later. Anyway, I hope this was relaxing or fun or something. And I will see you guys in the next video. So, I hope you're having a good night, day, whatever it is for you. I really fucked up that outro. Anyway, see ya. Mwah.